Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 365 of the All Dolphins podcast. We are Saturday, September 21st, 2024, day before the Miami Dolphins return to the field for their Week 3 game against the Seattle Seahawks at Lumen Field. We are here to discuss, and I'm flying solo by myself. Yes, solo by myself. That's how solo I am. For those of you watching on YouTube, obviously you can see that. For those listening on the audio podcast, yep, I am by myself today. Just a quick show. Quick episode, just recapping the Dolphin moves on Saturday. There were some interesting ones, as well as some final thoughts ahead of this Week 3 game of the Miami Dolphins against the Seahawks at Lumen Field, which kicks off at 4:05 p.m. on Sunday. Game shown on CBS with good luck charm Kevin Harlan calling the action, with the play-by-play Trent Green doing the analysis. And we should probably understand, the Dolphin fans would know by now that the Dolphins have a 9-0 record since 2022 when Kevin Harlan is calling their game. So that's a good omen. But obviously Dolphins are going to have to get it done on the field, won't they? Okay, let's talk about those moves on Saturday the Dolphins made. They made 4 moves. The first one, very, very interesting, signed quarterback Tim Boyle off their practice squad to their 53-man roster, giving them 3 active quarterbacks. The other 2, of course, being Skylar Thompson and Tyler Huntley, with Tua Tagovailoa on injured reserve because of his concussion. The Dolphins also placed wide receiver Grant Dubose on injured reserve because of the shoulder injury that kept him out of practice this week. And the Dolphins elevated 2 wide receivers from the practice squad for the game against the Seahawks, those 2 being Eric Ezukama, the 2022 4th-round pick, and D. Eskridge, who the Dolphins signed after he was released by the Seattle Seahawks, for whom he played 24 games over the past 3 seasons. So where to start? Let's go. First of all, let's attack the wide receiver position. And the 2 moves with Ezukama and Eskridge certainly would seem to indicate that rookie 6th-round pick Malik Washington once again will have to be on the inactive list. His NFL debut waiting at least another week, which isn't surprising considering he was listed as doubtful on the final injury report of the week. So this would mean that Eskridge and Ezukama would join Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and Braxton Berrios as the 5 wide receivers on the game day roster. And generally speaking, team's not necessarily crazy about having fewer than that. So it kind of made sense that move would be made, be returned to the field for first time in almost a year for Ezukama. Of course, missed most of last season because of that mysterious neck injury that head coach Mike McDaniel told us dated back to his days at Texas Tech. And for Eskridge, this is a guy with some very, very interesting potential. Speedster out of Western Michigan. Exactly how much either one of those 2 will do, that remains to be seen. This offense still needs to go through Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and Devon Achane. Certainly, we would add Raheem Mostert to that list if Mostert were to play. But like Malik Washington, he was listed as doubtful on the final injury report. Those were the only 2 guys on that final injury report, other than Grant Dubose, who was ruled out. And then at that time, head coach Mike McDaniel, before practice Friday, said that a decision soon would have to be made with Dubose after more information was gathered. And when he was talking about the decision, clearly the decision was to whether to put Dubose on IR. McDaniel indicated on Friday that his injury was not season-ending, so it could be a case that he could wind up being designated for return. Let's remember the Dolphins have 8 of those. 2 of those will go to River Craycraft and Cam Smith. Tua will have another one, likely, very, very likely. So that would be 3. Dolphins used up all 8 last year. You remember that it's up to 8, including 2 on the final day of roster cuts this year, which is a new wrinkle in the rule. And then you get 2 additional ones if your team is once you're in the playoffs. So the Dolphins wound up using 8 last year. The last one was Jerome Baker, who came back for the season finale against the Buffalo Bills, only to get injured again and have to miss a playoff game. So that takes care of the wide receiver situation. Now, the move with Tim Boyle, very interesting one. Look, we're going to be honest, and then certainly not change course because now he's on the 53-man roster. This was what we thought was a rather uninspiring signing when the Dolphins got him for the practice squad after he was waived by the Houston Texans, after the Dolphins released Mike White after he lost the number 2 quarterback battle to Skylar Thompson. What this tells us, though, is that the Dolphins feel comfortable with Tim Boyle being the backup on Sunday at Seattle if something should happen to Skylar Thompson, more so than they are with Tyler Huntley, who likely will serve as the emergency third quarterback in this particular game, which allows the Dolphins to dress another player. And this is a situation where, again, familiarity with the system. Tim Boyle's been with the Dolphins since after the cuts of 53 in late August. Tyler Huntley just joined the team this week. If you're a follower of this podcast, you know I'm not necessarily huge on the idea of it takes forever to learn a scheme, but 1 week is an awful short time, and it is a complicated offense with a lot of nuance to it. And again, this certainly could be an indication that Tim Boyle's ready to jump in the game should he be called upon, more so than Tyler Huntley. Again, once Tua returns to the lineup, as all indications seem to point, then my guess is Tim Boyle's the one who's going to go and not Tyler Huntley. And hopefully Tyler Huntley or Tim Boyle will not be needed, and Tim Boyle, I should say, will not be needed against the Seahawks, and we don't have a repeat of what happened in 2022 when the Dolphins were without Tua, which is a factoid that I keep mentioning and for some reason seems to go on deaf ears, and I'm going to repeat it again. The Dolphins were 1-4 without Tua in 2022, but, and these are not excuses as somebody on X shot back at me, these are the facts. The 3 losses without Tua starting in that 2022 season were against the New York Jets, the Minnesota Vikings, and the New England Patriots. In those 3 games, the Dolphins had an in-game quarterback change necessitated by injury every time. If you recall, Teddy Bridgewater lasted 1 play against the Jets because somebody upstairs decided that there might be a concussion issue there, and this was coming the game after Tua was injured against Cincinnati, and the league was going to be overly cautious and careful about these things. The following weeks against Minnesota, Skylar started, injured a thumb in the second quarter. Teddy Bridgewater came in. Against New England in week 17, yes, it was week 17, Teddy Bridgewater started, injured a thumb after throwing a pick 6 in the third quarter, and then Skylar had to come in. And again, I did the research a couple of years ago. Games where there's an in-game quarterback change, it's overwhelming, almost automatic. The team that has the quarterback change is going to lose. So that was one factor working against the Dolphins. Number 2, the defense didn't do its part. In those 3 losses without Tua starting, Dolphins had 0 takeaways against the Jets, 0 takeaways against Minnesota, 0 takeaways against New England. Oh, for good measure, 0 takeaways against the Jets, but they managed to win anyway, 11-6 in a butt-ugly game that got them into the playoffs. But that was the one game where there was no in-game quarterback change. And the final factor here, in those 3 losses, Jets, Minnesota, New England, Teron Armstead played a combined total of 8 snaps. And I don't think I need to tell Dolphin fans that this is not a great offensive line to begin with, and Teron Armstead is easily the best, and it's not close, player on that offensive line. And when you have to go without him, it doesn't look the same. And if you recall, especially that Minnesota game, the Dolphin quarterbacks were getting battered. That's how Skylar Thompson got injured, and he was pressured throughout the game, and so was Teddy Bridgewater. So I point that out to say that this assumption that, Dolphins without Tua equals a loss because of what happened in 2022 is ridiculous. And then if you go look at that playoff game in 2022 against the Bills, when Skylar Thompson was a rookie 7th-round pick, and I wrote about this on Miami Dolphins on SI, went back and looked at that game, he really did not look nearly as bad as his numbers would suggest, which was 18 for 44, 220 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 picks, passer rating under 45, but there were also 3 drop passes, number 1, a lot of pressure, which led to some throwaways, And then also there was some time management issues that caused plays coming in late. And if you recall how that game ended, it was a 4th and 6 incompletion on a pass intended for Mike Gesicki after Skylar Thompson had to roll out of the pocket because of pressure. And that 4th and 6 became a 4th and 6 because the Dolphins were called for a delay of game on 4th and 1. So that was not on Skylar. Having said that, this is not to say that the Dolphins are going to win and that Tua's absence doesn't make any difference. Of course, it makes a difference. He's the starting quarterback for a reason. Nobody, I repeat, in case this needs to be said, I never ever once suggested that there would be no drop-off. I never once suggested the Dolphins were the same team without Tua. What I have said is that the notion that the Dolphins can't win without Tua is ridiculous to me. And if that's the case, then it's a nasty case of mismanagement by the Dolphins in terms of constructing their roster and all that. Little historical tidbit as well when we're talking about quarterbacks making their first start after an injury. And I'm going to point out to two fairly recent example. I mean, in the history of the team, it's a fairly recent example. Maybe to provide some hope, to say that it's not a lost cause because Skylar Thompson's starting quarterback. 2018, Brock Osweiler, who, spoiler alert, not a great quarterback. Ryan Tannehill got injured against Cincinnati, didn't start for a game against the Chicago Bears in Miami. Recall that game, Dolphins won 31-28 in overtime, thanks in part to a Cody Parkey missed field goal attempt in overtime, I think it was, or late in regulation. Cody Parkey, who had been practically perfect for the Dolphins the previous year, did him a favor the next year by missing. But Brock Osweiler that day, 380 yards passing, the highest total for the Dolphins that season. That was his first start for the Dolphins that year. So this is somebody coming in and stepping up. And this is nothing that Brock Osweiler had done before. 2016, if you recall, Ryan Tannehill goes down against the Arizona Cardinals in December. Following week, Matt Moore has to start a night game against the New York Jets at MetLife Stadium. He lights it up. AFC Offensive Player of the Week, 4 touchdown passes. Dolphins win 34-13. They win the following week at Buffalo, clinch a playoff spot. Again, and to me, I think Matt Moore's a better quarterback than Skylar Thompson, but that's not the point I'm trying to make. The point I'm trying to make is this notion that a backup quarterback can't come in and get the job done or have a big performance in his first start because of an injury to the starter. It's happened. It's there. And the truth with Skylar Thompson, we don't know. The dude has not started a game since that 2022 playoff game at Buffalo. And no, the preseason games don't count. Okay. It's just flat out not the same. Look who Skylar Thompson was playing with this preseason. Okay. You're going to say on the flip side, look, he was playing against. Sure, fair. But I think the difference is the better gauge of the quarterback is get talent around him and go up against better quality competition as opposed to playing with backups against backups. Okay. So, and then in training camp, yes, it didn't look good in training camp. Again, Tyreek Hill didn't practice in training camp. Jalen Waddle didn't practice in training camp. So not the same circumstances. Those two guys are going to be in the lineup against the Seahawks on Sunday. And logically, they could make a difference. So can the Dolphins win? Absolutely, the Dolphins can win. In fact, spoiler alert, in my comprehensive preview on Miami Dolphins on SI, MiamiDolphinsOnSI.com, I went there. Yeah, I actually went there. I don't think Seattle's a great team. Again, they faced Bo Nix and Jacoby Brissett in their first 2 games. That's a way to look pretty good. And on offense, they had more success against Denver than they did against New England. Their offensive line's not great. They're missing Kenneth Walker III, who's a very good running back. He's not going to play. So I don't see any reason. I am, again, understanding that we do not know Skylar Thompson's performance could go anywhere from he could be very good or he can stick up the joint. We don't know. This is where I think the Dolphins are going to lean on their playmakers. I would hope there would be a lot of plays called that are easy completions. Again, the bubble screens, quick slants, even shovel passes to get Skylar into a rhythm, give him a couple of deep shots. For Skyler, the biggest thing is going to be avoid the big mistake. But I do think he's got the capability of getting the job done. And if he falls flat, not only tomorrow and in the ensuing weeks, that's going to be a massive indictment on the Dolphin front office and head coach Mike McDaniel that they did not prepare better for a contingency that they should have known, or maybe they knew had a good chance of happening, and that's Tua getting injured. Because again, last year was great that Tua never got hurt, except that's not his history. So again, we will find out tomorrow and in the weeks after, Tennessee, New England, Indianapolis, what Skylar Thompson can do. And he has a chance to validate the Dolphins, faith in him by playing. He does not need to, again, to throw for 350 yards. He needs to be a facilitator, and more than anything else, he needs to not be the reason the Dolphins fail. So we shall see how it plays out. Again, as a recap of the big news on the day for Saturday for the Dolphins, they placed wide receiver Grant Dubose on injured reserve, signed Tim Boyle, quarterback, to the active roster from the practice squad, and then elevated for the game against the Seahawks from the practice squad. Wide receivers Eric Ezukama and D. Eskridge. Very happy to see Ezukama getting another shot. Like the kid, I think he's got an intriguing skill set. With Dubose on IR, possibly at some point, maybe this week, the Dolphins, like when they recalibrate ahead of the Tennessee game next Monday night, they decide they want a fifth wide receiver on the active roster instead of doing the elevation every week, and maybe Eric Ezukama is that guy. We shall see. We also shall see how it's going to play out against the Seahawks on Sunday afternoon. Programming note, there will be a live post-game show with Ken Levica right after the game, so it should be around 7:05. Hopefully, we can talk about a big performance from Skylar Thompson. Until then, please like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Thanks for watching. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday, and more importantly, enjoy the game on Sunday.